All right, today we're prying open the government's most secret file cabinets. We're going to uncover some of the most absolutely shocking declassified stories in American history. Trust me, these are the ones they never ever wanted you to know about.
So you have to wonder, right? How deep does this rabbit hole actually go? Well, from the height of Cold War paranoia all the way to the War on Terror, government agencies have dreamed up some of the wildest schemes imaginable. I mean, stuff that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a spy movie. So, let's dive in. And forget a boring agenda. Today, we're talking about weaponized bats. We're talking about CIA-funded brothels that were used to test mind control drugs, plots to stage fake terror attacks on American soil. Seriously. Oh, and attempts to turn psychics into spies, and even a plan to nuke the moon. And no, I am not making any of that up.
First up, let's head into what I'm calling the laboratory of the bizarre. This is that strange place where national security meets mad science, and the results? Well, they're some of the weirdest projects any government has ever come up with.
So, picture this. It's 1957. The Soviet Union has just stunned the world. They launched Sputnik. The US is feeling the pressure. They're desperate to make a huge statement to prove they're still top dog in this ultimate Cold War contest. They needed something big, something loud.
That's right, the actual plan was to detonate a nuclear bomb on the surface of the moon. The hope was that it would create a mushroom cloud so massive it would be visible from Earth for everyone to see. Thankfully, someone somewhere realized this was one of the most terrible ideas in history, and the plan was scrapped. But believe me, that was far from their only strange idea.
Then you got something called Project X-ray. I mean, with a name like that, it sounds like it's straight out of a comic book, right? During World War II, the military's big idea was to attach these tiny little firebombs to thousands upon thousands of bats, drop them from planes over Japanese cities, and just let them fly into buildings and set everything on fire.
And this wasn't just some back-of-the-napkin idea. It cost the equivalent of $35 million in today's money. So how did it end? Well, during a big test, the armed bats were accidentally released. They immediately flew over to a nearby hangar and blew up a barn and a general's car that was parked there. The project was, not surprisingly, canceled.
The psychological tactics they came up with were just all over the map, from the completely absurd to the truly terrifying. On one hand, you have the so-called gay bomb, a proposed project from 1994 to create a chemical that would make enemy soldiers too busy with each other to fight. But on the other hand, you have a shockingly disturbing operation in the Philippines where the CIA preyed on local folklore. They staged a fake vampire attack, draining a rebel soldier of his blood to scare an entire insurgency into abandoning their position. And the craziest part? It actually worked.
Okay, let's shift gears from the bizarre to something honestly a lot more unsettling. The long history of the government turning its massive surveillance machine on its own people. And this is not a new thing. It's been evolving for decades. It started way back in the 40s with the FBI spying on thousands of Americans. Then in the 60s, you get Project Mockingbird, where the CIA literally recruited journalists to be spies. And of course, after 9/11, the Patriot Act gave the government sweeping new powers, leading to the mass tracking of phone calls.
And who are they watching? We're not just talking about radicals. We're talking about some of the biggest cultural icons on the planet. Charlie Chaplin, John Lennon, Muhammad Ali. And some, like Walt Disney, got more than just watched. He apparently got so cozy with the FBI that he became what they called a special agent in charge contact.
Okay, now the tone is going to get a lot darker. Because for some of these secret government projects, the human mind wasn't just something to be watched. No, it was a battlefield, a thing to be conquered, using some of the most ethically disturbing experiments you can possibly imagine. And at the dark heart of all this was Project MKUltra. This was the CIA's top secret and now infamous program to see if drugs like LSD could be used for mind control, for interrogation, or even to create real-life Manchurian Candidate-style sleeper agents. And the most chilling part? They were drawing on methods used by Nazi and Imperial Japanese war criminals.
One of its most notorious sub-projects was called Operation Midnight Climax. The CIA hired sex workers to bring men to these agency-funded brothels. Once there, the men were dosed with LSD without their knowledge, without their consent, while CIA agents watched from behind two-way mirrors to see if the drug would make them spill all their secrets.
But the government's unethical human experiments weren't just limited to the CIA.
For 40 years, 4 decades, the U.S. Public Health Service conducted the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. They recruited 600 poor black men who had syphilis, telling them they were getting free health care. But the reality? They were given no treatment at all. The government just wanted to study the devastating effects of the disease over time. It was a 40-year lie that cost an untold number of lives.
And perhaps nothing captures the chilling doublespeak of these operations like this quote. This is the opening line from the CIA's own torture guide, the Human Resource Exploitation Training Manual. It goes on to detail all these coercive techniques and then immediately says they don't use or condone them. The sheer hypocrisy is just staggering.
For our final section, we're looking at the most extreme secrets of all: covert operations to topple governments, assassinate world leaders, and in one absolutely terrifying case, a plan to attack its own people just to start a war.
No foreign leader was a bigger thorn in the CIA side than Cuba's Fidel Castro. For decades, the agency was absolutely obsessed with getting rid of him. They launched one of the most relentless and frankly creative assassination campaigns in modern history.
And the number of attempts, it's just mind-boggling. Not once, not a dozen times, but an estimated 634 times. The agency threw literally everything it had at the guy.
And the methods were pure spy novel stuff. They tried cigars spiked with deadly botulinum toxin. They tried a shell-shaped packed with explosives, hoping he'd pick it up while diving. They tried contaminating one of his diving suits with a flesh-eating fungus. They even made a pen that was secretly a hypodermic needle. And after all that, none of it worked.
This table here really shows just how far these agencies were willing to go. On one hand, you have a plot to assassinate the Congo's democratically elected leader, Patrice Lumumba, by poisoning his toothpaste. But even more shocking was Operation Northwoods, a proposal to stage fake terrorist attacks on Americans, blowing up a U.S. ship just to create a justification for war with Cuba. It was only rejected when it got to President Kennedy's desk. And this wasn't just reserved for foreign targets. Declassified documents have since confirmed that the FBI was directly involved in the assassination of Fred Hampton. He was the 21-year-old chairman of the Black Panther Party in Illinois.
The evidence really exposes the official story for the lie it was. They called it a fierce shootout. But look at this. The police fired almost 100 rounds into that apartment. The Panthers? They fired once. And why? Because an FBI informant had drugged Hampton before the raid, making sure he wouldn't wake up. Ultimately, when you look at all of this, from plans to nuke the moon to the government assassinating its own citizens, it paints a really disturbing picture. And it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. Where do we draw the line between protecting a nation and deceiving its people? That's something to think about. Thanks for joining me.